Welcome to the Better Agent Podcast. If you're a real estate agent that's looking to grow your business, then you're in the right place. Whether you want to go from 5 to 10 transactions a year, or 10 to 50 transactions per year, or more, well then this show is for you. I'm Josh Lavik, your host for the Better Agent Podcast, and in each episode, we'll bring you the tools, tips, and tricks directly from myself and some of the best leaders within the real estate industry. We have one goal in mind, and that's to boost your production and elevate your real estate game. Let's dive in and start creating a better real estate experience together. Welcome back to the Better Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Lavik, and we are talking about real estate and how to get better in your real estate business. So if you are a real estate agent, a team leader, broker, owner, whatever it might be for you, and you're looking to improve your business, hopefully we can bring some insight from myself and then also guests that I have on the show. I've been in the business for 20 years now in real estate. Hard to believe it's been that long, but it is. And love having different guests on the show from lots of different backgrounds, actually lots of different firms as well. I think we get a good diverse background and a good mix, and hope we bring some value for you today. Today, I've got a wonderful guest. Alison Crim with me is joining me. She's actually in my same market here, and have known Alison for a number of years, and she's gonna hopefully bring some value to help you improve your real estate business. So whether you're at 5 or 10 transactions, looking to go from there on up to maybe 20 or 30 or more, whatever it might be for you in your real estate business, hopefully you can get some insight. So without further ado, Alison, I'll turn it over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself and give our listeners a little bit more information about your background and kind of what led you here today.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Josh.
Yeah.
So Josh and I are working in the same market here in Madison. Our offices are super close to each other, just down the road from each other as well. And I'm in my 8th year of business here in Madison in real estate. And I run a team of 10 people. That includes 9 agents and 1 admin. And yeah, like I said, this is my 8th year. And part of that, I had a professional project management background before I went back into real estate. And I think that organizational background has led me to be a really systems-oriented person as I've grown and scaled my team.
Hey there, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to interrupt real quick and just say that if you want more of this discussion and topic about growth in your real estate business, then I just want to invite you to join us on one of our future masterminds. We do them every week, all the time, either virtually or in person. And you can go to realestateteammastermind.com, learn a little more about that, and sign up to join us on the next call. Again, realestateteammastermind.com. Hope you're enjoying the show. Take care. Yeah, for sure. Holy cow. I can definitely appreciate that. I mean, I've been building our systems and back-end information, I feel like, along with my assistants as well over the years. And, it's definitely a good skill to have. What do you think are some of the, maybe I don't have a lot of systems. Maybe if I was an agent starting out, maybe I don't have that many things built. What do you think? Maybe let's dive into, you can share a few things, but what do you think are some core systems that you think an agent should focus on to really, really launch and propel them to that next level?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think whether you are a solo agent or an agent with 1 admin or you're running a big team, it is incredibly important for the first thing that you do is to make a list and essentially make like an operations manual for everything that you do that represents your standards. That's what I did when I was still a part-time agent. Is I made a list of, here's what I do from step 1, I get a new lead, to, step 50, getting them closed. And I created a checklist for buyers, for sellers, and everything in between. So I think whether you just want to be a single solo agent that's successful or grow and scale, you need to have a system that you stand by that is a set of your standards so that you consistently abide by those, or the people that work with you consistently abide by those. And so those steps are constantly revisited. And if you're a new agent and you don't have the steps, then you write it as you go, or you talk with other agents and you get checklists as a starting point that exist online, and then you have that foundation and then you make adjustments along the way. But I think it's important that either way, however you start it, that you constantly are tweaking it and making those changes as you are adjusting your systems and standards.
Yeah, isn't it? It sounds simple, right? I mean, build a checklist. I mean, people fly airplanes with a checklist, right? And we're not flying airplanes here, right? We're just trying to sell some houses, sell some real estate. But it, as simple as it is, just document your procedure. what you do, how you do it, have a checklist. Our business is actually very similar. I mean, we have different checklists, right? You created yours and I created mine, but at the end of the day, we both have a checklist for how we want to try to execute our service on a day-to-day basis, and so that we can deliver consistent results to our customers. And I think that's the key too. I think when, if you're only doing a handful of transactions, maybe you don't need a checklist as much, right? Because you're in on every single part of the process. But I think once you start to scale up a little bit more and you get busy with different buyers or sellers or more appointments, then suddenly your time gets stolen from different parts. And that's where, I've really found that's where the systems and the checklist comes into play. Like, okay, where are we at with this? Because then, as long as you know what the process should be according to your standard, well, then it's easy to audit those systems and determine where you need to go next. So yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, it's interesting too. I've noticed over the years, I mean, I remember starting out early, I didn't have a lot of systems either. And I just, would type out different templates or create things or whatever. Boy, now these days, you got your phone and you can practically speak in and it'll, transcribe your voice for you. I mean, it's so easy these days, right? Like it's fairly easy to document your systems. I think in today's day and age, just with the voice transcription or different AI tools that are out there, I mean, there's definitely ways to do it, but it does take time and effort and consistency to get that done. So that's definitely important for sure. So
I agree with that too. I think too, if it helps you understand when you need to hire leverage too, if you have a system you're keeping track of, because first everything is your task unless you hire things out. And so if I'm a solo agent just starting out and I figure out that there's 50 tasks to get a buyer from meeting them to closing, well, then when I start to have 10 buyers on my plate, I can then start to go through my list and highlight these are the things that I'm going to leverage out to an admin or a virtual assistant or whatever. And it just makes that onboarding process a lot easier when the time comes to.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a hard point. I know a lot of agents out there struggle with. I mean, I remember even my own self, right? When I was just trying to ramp up, trying to do more, like, okay, should I hire somebody? Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can afford to keep them. What if I can't? How do I do that? How do you decide, or how did you make that commitment? And what did that scale go from, hey, I'm Allison, I'm brand new in real estate, to like, okay, now I'm ready to hire somebody? Like, when do you make that leap?
Yeah, I made that first leap. Let's see here. So my first assistant, I hired my first executive assistant in December of 2019. So I'd been a solo agent prior to that. So I had been doing sales for about a year and a half or so on my own. And it got to the point where I was working all day, working all night, working every weekend. And one of the reasons I went into real estate was to be able to build some roots in my community, settle down, start a family. And I was working as many hours as I was in a corporation where I was prior to being in real estate. And so I also looked ahead at my pipeline, because this was in December of 2019. I looked ahead at what was going to come in the spring. And I had no idea at that point that COVID was going to hit us that spring, which shook everything up. So the time
that'll blow up the world. I mean, yeah, that shook everything up. Holy cow. It
definitely did. But I looked ahead and I saw, wow, I have a lot of these clients in my pipeline, buyers and sellers. There's no way I'm going to be able to support them in the future with all the admin tasks on my plate. So I think me being able to look ahead for the next 3 months, 6 months, which is what you should always be hiring for, led me to realize I needed to hire before I was, crying, saying that I really needed it. And I was, over my head, and I could use them to onboard when it was still slow, and so that they were up and running when the business was really busy and when I really needed to use them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's, 1.5 years after, I think you hit that point though, that's an inflection point, right? When you're so busy that you are pulling your hair out and you can't work anymore, like you feel like you're working 24/7. If you're an agent out there and you feel like you're working 24/7, you need to hire somebody like immediately, because there is no reason that a good, successful agent needs to work 24/7. You should have some type of leverage, some type of administrative person at the minimum. And, and I started out in this business. I mean, I was new. I had joined, actually, my mom was a realtor. She's the one that got me into this business, right? And I teamed up with her. So I had sort of that built-in leverage right there, just sort of, hey, I'm out of town. Can you help me out with something or whatever? But if you don't have anybody, like a lot of times that responsibility falls on you as an agent. And so, at the very least, maybe partner with another agent, either in your office or somebody else, but I remember too, even hiring, I didn't go that full-time admin person, executive assistant role like you. Instead, I hired just a per transaction person and did, I needed help just keeping my files in order, right? Like, who would have thought it's that hard to just keep files in order? But it takes time, and it has to be done, and it has to be done perfect every time. Okay. And, so even if it's hiring somebody on a per transaction basis or an hourly basis or whatever it looks like, I think taking that off your plate will help you stay focused and help you be able to breathe more without you feeling like you have to work 24/7, for sure.
I agree with that, Josh. And one thing I always coach my team is that they need to focus on income producing tasks, and those admin tasks are not income producing tasks. And so, yes, until you have the money, you do all the jobs for free and you wear all the hats until you have ample opportunity to be able to provide the income for somebody else in addition to yourself. But if you're spending your time, going on Canva and making templates for social media or doing other things that you can pay someone some sort of hourly rate to do, so you can focus on sales and conversion and bringing in the commissions, then that's what you should do as an agent.
Yeah, Canva, it's a cool tool, right? There's all kinds of cool bells and whistles and different flyers I can make. It reminds me of a comment I heard from one of my mentors mentioned to me that said, if you're spending more time in Canva than you are in your database, there's a problem. Okay. And so, keeping your head and focus in your database and your clients, like that's where it needs to be, those conversations. At least, that was what my mentor told me. And I couldn't agree more. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
yeah, totally. I mean, it's a black hole. A lot of those marketing things are black holes because they're fun to play around and create templates and do social media posts and whatever and newsletters. But there are people who can get paid a very modest wage to do it much better than you can in a shorter amount of time. And you can use that time to go out and find clients.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, that makes sense. But what about, but marketing does matter, right? Like, I do need to maybe invest something into marketing, whether it's time or money or something. I mean, I don't know. What's your take on marketing? What's working for you these days in terms of a marketing perspective?
Marketing is incredibly important. I mean, for my team of 10, we have a full-time director of operations and part-time marketing support staff who runs the marketing for our team. But prior to having those people on my team, it was something that I did myself. And prior to spending any money on marketing, I spent time on prospecting. So before I sent out any mailers or flyers or did anything really fancy, I just spent my time prospecting, which is what I think not enough agents do. And that was hitting the phones, which people don't want to hear, and calling FSBOs and expireds. I even prospect on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And, I was prospecting while I had a different full-time job in the beginning, and I was sending Facebook messages. I would probably send like 100 a day that were just like, hey, I'm new to the real estate industry. I want to take you out for coffee, see if you have any questions. And probably for every 100 messages I sent, I got one reply. And sometimes it was a no. So maybe for every 200, I got someone to take me up on coffee. But it ended up bringing me my first client, which was a buy and sell. And then that turned into a referral for another client. So that spent, in terms of marketing dollars, maybe it cost a $5 cup of coffee, but I didn't spend any money to market myself or my brand until I had a full pipeline.
Boy, sometimes people get lost in the numbers or don't even realize the numbers. And I think that you bring up an interesting point that is, you're going to send messages, you're going to call people, you're going to reach out to people, whether that's on Facebook or whether that's on the phone or sending texts or whatever. That's prospecting, right? That's actively nurturing, trying to build your business. And you did 200 before you even got an appointment, okay? And that isn't even a sale, right? That's not even a guaranteed closing. So you just did a bunch of work and you don't even know if it's going to come to something, but obviously it did because you kept going. And I think, sometimes agents maybe don't do enough, right? It's like, I feel like it's like going to the gym, right? You gotta put in the reps. But if you only go once or twice and you hope to see, that amazing physique, it's going to take a little bit more than that and a little bit more time and consistency and time on task. That's for sure. So there you go. There's a formula for you. 200 messages and a $5 cup of coffee, and you can get an appointment. Totally.
I agree. And I think, Josh, you and I have a similar background in that we both came from Keller Williams earlier on in our careers. And while neither of us are there, I learned that it can be as simple as it just being a numbers game. And so I had taken one of their training programs, Bold, which I'm sure Josh knows and has taken many, many times like I have.
Several times. Yes, I have.
Yep. I think I had taken it 6 or 7 times when I was there. And I was a brand new agent when I had taken that training class. I had 0 people in my pipeline. And while it didn't bring me any business for about 6 months, it did end up filling up my pipeline for the following season, which then led me to go into real estate full time. And the point of that is to have conversations, back and forth connection about real estate. And so the only way I could do that with the limitation I had about having another job was sending blanket Facebook messages just so I could get the reps in. And ultimately it did pay off.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bold is a great course, for people out there. I mean, I think there's lots of great courses and programs. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you can do something though, that gets you into momentum, that you are, doing some type of prospecting, active in the community, reaching out to people, doing that in conjunction with marketing, that's what's going to work. Right? It's not just one or the other. It's not just putting your face on a billboard and hoping that works. I mean, you could, but it's a lot of money, and I don't think it's going to work unless you actually pick up the phone and follow up with people, or, and do that in conjunction with it. It's a little bit of both in this world.
I agree. And it's taking the wins that you get from doing your initial prospecting and using those to market. So when you get that first lead that you are doing showings, or even if you're just doing an assistance task and helping people with various stuff around the office, market yourself by sharing those. And that's when you can start to put that on social media or put it in a newsletter or use what you're already doing, because then people will start to think, wow, you're really already in the business. They don't know that you're helping someone or just doing a showing, or that it's your first client, and you're just posting about it and you're doing these marketing things that are free before you start spending any money.
I think that's an interesting point too, because there's something that we do on our team that we have all of our agents do, and that's write a bio. And to me, what is so important about that exercise is just that identity shift that an agent or a person has, right? They're hopefully shifting from that, whatever previous career they were in to, hi, I'm now in real estate and this is my new career path. I want the world to know this is my identity right now. I remember early on, I have a branded vehicle outside, right? So, do I need a branded vehicle? Not necessarily, but I remember early on, going to some training course, or I was on maybe a Facebook group, I think it was, that's what it was. And I had reached out and I was like, hey, are there any agents on here that have a branded vehicle? And there was like, immediately one of them popped up, showed a picture of their car, and it was all branded and whatever. And they were like this agent that I super respected out of some community in Nevada, I think it was. And I was just, I was blown away by it. And I was like, I made the decision immediately to go out and do it, and I remember talking to lots of agents all over the place. They're like, oh, I could never do that. I drive too crazy, or I drive too fast, or, I would, I don't know. Apparently they cut people off. Well, I'll tell you what, that'll curb your speed real quick if you drive a branded vehicle. But I remember the distinction that happened for me was not necessarily that it changed how I drove that much, but it did force me to pause every single day when I got in my car, like reminding myself, what's my identity? Who am I stepping into? What am I becoming? Am I that top agent that I say I am, or am I just doing this kind of part-time, halfway, not really sure, So anyway, it's a weird kind of thing, but whatever it is for you, I think it's different for everybody. You're not saying you have to get a branded vehicle, but I think, what are you doing to shift your identity to, I am a full-time, committed, successful realtor in this market?
I think that's a really good point, Josh. And I think it applies to, for example, like a new or younger agent who hasn't yet scrubbed their social media of their past life before being in real estate as a self-employed individual, because like you said, you need to create a bio. That's number one. You need to make sure on every platform, and if somebody Googles you, they see you first and foremost as a competent real estate professional. So if they go to your Instagram, they shouldn't be able to see pictures of you in like some scantily clad attire, because you need to look like a professional. They shouldn't be able to see pictures of you partying in college, because that was you, 10 years ago or maybe last year. Everything needs to be scrubbed, and your bio needs to show yourself as the professional that you are.
There you go. Task number 1 from anybody listening: go out and update your social media profiles and upgrade your identity. There's your challenge for you, for sure. So, oh, that's hilarious. I know. I think I probably need to go back and update some of mine. That's for sure. I mean, I haven't done that in a long time, but I've also been doing real estate for a long time. So hopefully there's nothing too crazy out there. But anyway, well, gosh, I like how this conversation's going so far. What else is, would you say to somebody out there maybe, or anything else on your mind in terms of growth, and maybe what were some pivotal things that you did in your career or in your team growth or whatever that you think, really moved the needle in terms of your growth and getting to that next level? What is there anything that stands out for you that maybe was pivotal in your growth trajectory?
The first biggest pivot for me was when I hired my executive assistant, and it was me thinking that I could do everything on my own. But then I realized that by hiring leverage that I could then do so much more. And then that was a year that I doubled my business. So that was huge. And I think also people are often scared to say, I can't afford to pay somebody X salary this year, but you don't have to commit to paying them salary for 12 months. All you need to do is commit to paying them for 90 days. So can you commit to saving, let's say, $5,000 to pay somebody for the next 90 days? Because if they're not giving you their value within 90 days, then you should cut them loose. So that was also a big piece of advice that I got, was like, don't think that, oh, this is going to cost me 50 grand. It's going to cost me maybe 5 grand, and they should be bringing in business and systems and things along the way to make that well worth your time. So that's the first thing. The next thing I would say on my mind is just that your business grows to the extent that your relationships grow, because real estate is a relationship business, and it should always be focused on relationships for people that know you, like you, and trust you. And if people don't know you, if they don't like you and they don't trust you, you're not going to do business. So I think focus first on deepening relationships, meeting new people, finding out more about what makes people tick and their why, and business will just come to you rather than you have to go fishing for it.
Yeah, for sure. No, those are some good points. And yeah, I think that's a good point. I like that 90-day mentality around hiring a person, right? Because, you don't necessarily have to think that far in advance. I remember though, when I first hired my first full-time assistant, I was scared to death. Can I afford to keep this person? I had no idea, but I had a similar experience. I think I 1.5 times my business that year, not quite double, but like still they more than paid for themselves. And more than that, I wasn't doing stuff at 8 o'clock at night, trying to managing my paperwork. Like that was like worth everything. I would have paid more even, So I think at the end of the day, you're going to get your life back. You're going to get your focus back, and it's going to help you, and you are going to grow by default. And even if you don't even double your business, say you do a similar amount, but if they can at least pay for themselves, and you have some of your own time and your own mindset back, like that to me is worth every penny for sure. So love that for sure. So yeah, building trust is important. I agree with that for sure. I mean, building, I know we talk about some things on our team too, that's kind of similar about, we talk a lot about knowledge, right? And having sort of market knowledge, and like, what do you know about the market? How many, do you have an intelligent answer when someone asks you, how's the market, right? To me, that's sort of in line with that concept of, do they know you, like you, and trust you? But beyond that, do they trust that you are the authority on real estate, that can give good advice around real estate? I mean, I think that that's an important thing to do. So, an exercise that we have all of our team members do too, is studying the market, and just some of our monthly market statistical reports. They're really, they're good reports from even our local board of realtors puts them together, but it's just information. And unless you internalize or know some of that information, then, they're just kind of sitting there online somewhere. But I think knowing and being able to communicate some of that market knowledge is going to be something that at least would help you or anybody, become more of an authority in their market and help build that trust with clients for sure. So
I agree.
Yeah, I love that. Well, very cool. Well, we've been talking a lot of stuff here. Tell me, so you and I, we both kind of run teams, right? So we have a similar smallish team. I think I've got 7 team members plus another 2 administrative people. But how has that always been? What's that been like for you, being sort of running a team, operating a team? Has that been, if I'm in a smaller agent, maybe I just have 1 administrative assistant, and I'm thinking about trying to bring on more agents. What would you say to that person?
Well, when I got into the real estate business, I didn't do it expecting to have this team that I have today. I got into the business thinking I was going to flip houses and work for myself and not have a boss. And so it kind of took on this beast of its own, or became a beast of its own. Yeah, I mean, I would say nobody should build a team just for the sake of building a team or for the volume or for the numbers. It's been built, as I'm sure yours is too, Josh, it's been built out of necessity to be the size that it is. So I don't ever hire just to hire. I hire because there's a need, either because I have an overflow of leads, or because we need to service or double down on a certain location, or because an agent approaches me and they like what I'm doing and they'd be a good culture fit. But I would say growing a team is the most challenging part about being in this business and being a business owner, because it's dealing with people. There's as a team leader, you are managing people who don't want to be managed as realtors. Realtors are liking to fly by the seat of their pants, and they don't like rules, and they want to have flexibility. And while that's great, if somebody wants to be on a team, they also see the value in your brand and your marketing and your systems. And so it's a challenging type of individual to manage, to try to find and finesse the right way to lead them without micromanaging them.
Managing people. That's right. I often hear, right? I got into this business for the freedom and flexibility of real estate. And it's, I don't want a boss anymore. I want to do it my way. I want to do things a certain way. And it is, boy, it's interesting. You said it's the most challenging part, growing this team. So for those of you who think that growing a team is easy, I would echo Allison's thought and say it is very challenging for sure, because not everybody, is in alignment, and it takes some work for sure to kind of manage those people and figure out how to get everybody rowing in the same direction. But
and there's so many different ways you can grow a team. There's no one right model. There's some teams who have all of their agents that work with them be buyer agents, and they have separate listing agents. There's people that have all admin staff and they have 2 agents. It's just kind of, what are you looking for? And I think that's the whole thing of being in real estate too, is that success is so subjective. It's, what are you looking for? Are you looking to just make a ton of money? Are you looking to just have the highest volume or units? Are you looking to have a better work-life balance? I mean, often what you see on social media or people posting or whatever is, their version of success, and it doesn't have to match what yours is. And some people maybe are doing $100 million in sales, but they're maybe spending $50,000 a month in Zillow leads, and so what are they netting and what's important? So I think anyone that wants to build a team, it comes with, more money, more problems for sure, but it's also grow the team, grow the life that you want to live, because that's not the same for everybody, and do it to fuel your purpose and your why, rather than just to be, the best, or to, have the highest numbers that are out there, because that comes with a lot of headaches that are not just worth it.
Yeah, for sure. It's been, I've had a fairly small team for many years, actually. And I think, that's part of maybe why I haven't grown larger, is do I need to grow larger? I don't know. I kind of, in some ways, I like kind of just a smaller team that's, I really, at the end of the day, for me, I just wanted something with a little bit more leverage, so that if I'm out of town, I can know that my clients are handled. I can know that the business is handled, and that it's going to keep moving forward without me being the only one driving it forward. But, I think having that question and asking that question, right? Why am I doing this? Why, if you don't like to help other agents be successful, or other people be successful, then you should probably not grow a team. You need to want that to be a part of your ethos, I believe, to be successful, to help others be successful at the end of the day. So, it's oftentimes, I've heard the stories too, right? Lots of people, the big successful teams or agents doing hundreds of millions of dollars on stage, and, they get invited to the big award banquets. But, if they are spending so much money, sometimes they have to do the volume just to make it even remotely profitable. And then at the end of the day, how profitable are they? I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard many stories of lots of some of these large teams that, maybe aren't as profitable as you might think. And it's maybe not always the best road to go. So everybody needs to make that decision for themselves. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Josh. And I think the reason that my team is a team of 10 is kind of for the reasons that you said too. I do love coaching the agents on my team. I think that there's a lot of agents who are successful agents, and then they do not have success growing a team because they don't like to to train and give back in that way to other agents to grow them and coach them. And that's fine. And some agents are amazing, incredible solo agents who do a ton of volume, more than even my team does as a whole. And then they have a team of admin staff that can do it. And that's okay. For me, I don't want to be boots on the ground for every listing. I don't want my name on every sign. I want to be able to come home to my kids every night. And I want to also teach and coach my agents to go out and fish and find their own business and help support the brand that we've created. So there's no one right answer for anyone.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point. And I like actually that I think I feel like there's been a lot more iteration in terms of the team model, and there's lots of different models out there, more so now than even when I first started in the business. I know this was, back 20 years ago, there was maybe a handful of teams. I mean, teams weren't even really a thing. Now they kind of are, and they're all over the place. So I love that there's been more iterations and just more ways to do it, right? There's lots of ways to be successful, and I think that's part of the exciting part of real estate. In some ways I think it's great. It's kind of fun. So
I agree, definitely.
Very cool. Well, Alison, we've been chatting here for quite a while. Any last words? I don't want to take up all of your day and all your time. I've definitely enjoyed our conversation so far. Anything else on your mind that you think our listeners might find helpful or valuable as we chat more today?
I don't think anything top of mind. I'm thinking of what I was telling my team today, because we have weekly team meetings where we share market data and insights and things that we're seeing in the market. And I think it goes back to your point about being that person who is aware of the market trends and being able to interpret them and share those with your clients. And that's why we talk about it constantly with our team, because everybody in the world wants to know about real estate. And once someone learns that you're a realtor, they're going to ask you about it. And if you don't have a way to respond succinctly and competently about what's going on with the market, or is it still crazy, or they're telling you some interest rate, concern that they have, if you don't have a way to offset that by giving them value, then they're never going to see you as a professional. So you almost need to practice, saying out loud how you do the scripting to respond to those kind of questions and inquiries. Otherwise, you're going to be left high and dry without any clients, I think.
Yeah, well, and we do a similar kind of thing, and we practice as well. And for part of that reason is, if they do ask you, how's the market? What is your answer? And if your answer is, I think it's pretty good. Well, I'm kind of busy. What, are you in the market? I think we need to have a more intelligent answer than that. And so, what is your answer? What's the inventory like? What are prices like compared to this time last year, last month, whatever it might be? You don't need to know everything about it, but you do need to know something, and you need to have a compelling story that does share, I think, that's just explaining what's happening. What are you seeing and what's happening in the market? I think it's a great piece of advice. And like I said, I couldn't agree more. We study the market all the time as well. And definitely one of our core values is just having that market knowledge for sure. So, well, very cool. Well, Alison, I really appreciated you coming on the show today and sharing some more insight with our listeners. And I hope you enjoyed it as well. And look forward to doing more deals with you here in our market. Definitely looking forward to that as well, Josh. Thanks for the invite. Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks again. And again, you're watching the Better Agent Podcast with Josh Lavik and Alison Crim today. And if you enjoyed our show, feel free to post a review or message or whatever on your platform of choice. And if you liked what we had to talk about, then tune in next time and you can listen to our next guest and hopefully get some more insight from that one. So again, I'm your host, Josh Lavik, Better Agent Podcast. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to the Better Agent Podcast. I hope you found today's insights valuable. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more tips, Q&A sessions, and sneak peeks into our 21-day challenge. To get full access of our show notes and more details on the 21-day challenge, go to abetterrealestateexperience.com. Keep striving for greatness, and I'll see you on the next episode.